the lane. 15-10. Touchdown, Chargers.
What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. Chris Hayre, as always, joined by Matt Money Smith. Money, I think you spoke it into existence again, my man. We were doing this Q&A, and you mentioned DJ Chark, and we close up the pod, publish it, get it ready for the people, and DJ Chark signs with the Chargers.
Yeah, nobody's better at putting an expiration date on their podcast like we are. It seems like, for whatever reason, the second we finish, about a couple hours later, something happens that we had kicked around, either, pushing back against what we thought might happen or what we thought would happen. Chark just made so much sense in terms of the age, the measurables, the speed, the fact that he's pretty much been an X his entire career. And look, there's a reason why he's available, at the first week of May. He's had injuries, and you wonder if the injuries have impacted the speed a little bit. And just, much like with Mike Williams, inability to kind of make himself available. But it's where the whole Ben Herbert conversation comes in. I'm going to make you harder to break. And if he can make DJ Chark harder to break, he's someone that's already done it. He's someone that's already had a 1,000-yard season and took the top off of defense repeatedly in that season. And that's what this team needs. So you do that, and now you've got Quentin and Ladd McConkey and Josh Palmer, to supplement that, and that can make a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's all about the competition that we talked about too. There's 11 wide receivers on the roster right now, and it's a position group that I think when you see Keenan leave and Mike leave, it's considered maybe one of the I don't want to say weaker, but position groups that have a lot to prove. So for Quentin and Joshua, like I was saying, there needs to be another guy or maybe a couple of guys in there to kind of push them outside of just the Brenden Rices and Cornelius from Michigan. So DJ Chark, I think, is a nice veteran to kind of push these guys. And, Money, he hasn't been in like the best of situations throughout his career either. He had that one year, I think, with Detroit a couple of years ago with Jared Goff. But other than that, I mean, that Carolina situation, I think a lot of people forgot about DJ Chark because of the Carolina situation. Like, it was so bad down there. So I think for players like Hayden Hurst and Chark to come out of that, come into a much better situation with a quarterback like Justin Herbert, maybe they can kind of make another step in their career that wasn't necessarily there in 2023 with the Panthers.
I think the biggest thing with Chark is just the speed and the quarterbacks that he's played with. It's, look, every quarterback in the NFL has a good arm. It's not like they don't have any arm strength, but just to really take advantage of it, he's played with Gardner Minshew, Jared Goff, and Bryce Young. Those are three guys that will never find themselves in the top half of the league in terms of arm strength. Now, they can push the ball downfield for sure, but when you've got a cannon like Herbert has, and you pair that with 4.3 speed on a 6.3 body, that's when things can get interesting. And those are the sort of explosive plays that we saw when Jalen Guyton first jumped on the scene and sort of made himself available downfield, and Herbert was able to push that ball to him, Teron Johnson as well. So just getting that ball out there, you got 4.3 speed, go run by your guy. You're not going to outrun my arm. So that's something that's exciting, because once you start doing that, all you have to do is once a game, and now the defense is on notice, and they gotta keep that safety up there and be worried about it and start making sure you don't get burned twice. It's one thing you can't afford is those explosive plays when you're a defense. And so if you can burn them early, especially, now all that stuff underneath is opening up, and that's where the whole Ladd McConkey is going to catch 200 balls because Chark's going to be taking the top off the defense. That sort of conversation comes into play.
Yeah, if people forget, he was a Pro Bowler in 2019. He's only 27 years old. That's the thing. His Pro Bowl season, he had 118 targets, 73 catches, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. Quietly had 5 touchdowns last year on that Panthers team that was just a mess in every facet. 11 games started last year, 35 catches for 525 and 5. Now, if he makes this team and he catches 60 balls for like 800 yards and 7 touchdowns, like that's exactly what you're looking for. And that's just, I mean, you improve his situation And the fact that he's 27, you mentioned the Ben Herbert factor, like he could be a really nice piece for this wide receivers room.
Yeah, and look, we might jinx ourselves again, right? You got Marquez Valdez-Scantling who's making a visit. It's another big body 4'3" guy. So clearly we know what they're looking for. Like we need, and you heard what Jim Harbaugh had to say about Ladd McConkey. He's like, that speed's real. It shows up. And I think it's almost the exact quote. I like guys that run 4.3s. So they've now brought in 2 free agents that run 4.3s. And that's DJ Chark and now Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They may sign them both. And the next thing you know, you got 12 guys, including undrafted free agents in the wide receiver room. And then again, it goes to how many you keeping? And you would, again, you assume you're keeping 3 for sure, or 3 for sure's, McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer. Feels like Brenden Rice and Cornelius Johnson were drafted for a reason. That's 5. Darius Davis is the most explosive, was voted by the players as the best returner in the league last year. So you're probably keeping him. Now you're already at 6 before we even get to Chark. Like it's gotten to be a very crowded room, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with competition and figuring out, and they may ask. That's what's so different about that position and the skill positions really in general, right? It's like, what are you asking of that position? And that varies from team to team, what they want from their wide receivers. What kind of running backs do you want? What kind of tight ends are best suited for what you want to do? And so we don't know. Like, it's hard to, because you had Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson last year on Michigan, and Cornelius was that downfield, go get it. And, whereas Roman was working that on those in breakers a lot, has incredible hands, would just snatch the ball and run, a lot of run after catch. But so, and as a smaller receiver, so there's, I think there's, it's almost like McConkey is a way better version of Wilson. And with Cornelius is that, blocking wide receiver on the outside, downfield, 50-50 ball, big body receiver sort of threat. So I don't know what kind of wide receiver room they want to create for Sanjay Val and what his vision is and what Greg Roman's vision is and how they want this thing to come together. But it's certainly in as far as the free agents go, and their second round pick, it's speed. They recognize this team is devoid of speed and explosive plays. And we've seen that for multiple years now, Chris. So I'm excited that they're going out and at least getting guys that can run in the 4.3s to try to figure out if we can open this thing up for the first time in years.
Of course, Ladd McConkey is going to be a name that we're all excited to see. And, you talk about Cornelius Johnson and Brenden Rice and DJ Chark. I just think that this is such a pivotal year for Quentin Johnston money with the competition that's coming in. Think about last year. He goes into a wide receivers room knowing that Keenan and Mike are the guys, and he's going to try to figure it out rookie year in the NFL and learn from those guys. This year, I feel like he needs to kind of rise to the occasion. His second year in the NFL, you see him working out with Marvin Harrison Jr. in the offseason. I know that this kid wants it, and we've seen the potential in him. How he responds to the competition, how he responds to the coaching throughout this offseason program and training camp. I think that that's the guy of anybody in that room that I'm just so intrigued to see this year. Can he put anything that was negative in his rookie season behind him and move forward in a positive way with confidence, knowing that the Chargers are going to expect a lot out of him?
Yeah, I think for Quentin, look, there's a few things for Quentin Johnston, right? And all the incoming that he took last year. He was going to get drafted in the top 40. He very well, if the Chargers decide to draft Dalton Kincaid or Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison, he very well could have been the next pick to the Ravens. He fits that mold of the type of receiver the Ravens like. So it's not like it was this crazy reach to draft him. He, for the most part, if you go to last year's rankings, he's in the top 5 for receivers in most people's rankings, and he was going to be a first-round pick. And I bring that up because that means the talent's there. So did he have blemishes? Yeah. He had concentration issues. He had serious drop issues, and he was to some degree not a one-trick pony, but we knew what he was really good at, and that's just kind of quick in-breakers, slants, get the ball and go. He struggled to track the ball over his shoulder, and he struggled to catch the ball when he was downfield. So he's got a really good skill set for a certain style of play. And it was the exact opposite. And we talked about this with Matt Harmon, right? It was the exact opposite of what they asked him to do last year, because they just asked him to be Mike Williams, and those were his greatest weaknesses that he needed to develop. So can he? Of course he can. It's not like that's the thing is these. Now, look, do some players have issues with drops? Yes. And can they not shake them? Sure. There are those cases. But for the most part, this is a concentration thing. It's a reps thing. It's a, you've got the physical gifts, you've got the body, you've got the movement skills. Now we just got to get the brain right. So you're not having that lapse in confidence where you have to, where you have to slow down, where you have to gather, where you're not comfortable sticking your hands out there and snatching the ball. You feel more secure when your hands are closer to your body. And even though that's not, you want your thumbs to be here, not here. And so those are the things you have to work on. And it's kind of why I'm not completely discouraged. And because I'm an old man with broken bones, I remember it used to take wide receivers years to get comfortable. We did not have rookie seasons like this, like Puka Nacua, like Jamar Chase, like Jordan Addison. Like, we just didn't. Those weren't around. It would take a year. And then it's like, okay, yeah, first year, 650, 750 yards, few touchdowns, and now you're working your way and you're kind of understanding press and how much stronger these guys are and how much more complicated defenses are. And you can't get lazy on routes, or there's going to be a corner there to jump in front of you and snatch a pass from your quarterback, and he's never going to throw to you again. Like, it used to take time. But now with, sort of the way that football has changed, the evolution of the offense to be more of a passing game, wide receivers are so much more developed by the time they get here. And so we have this incredible expectation that they're going to have these 12 to 1,500 yard, 10 touchdown rookie seasons. So it's not the end of the line for Quentin. I saw an article, because before we do the pod, I always like to dig deep and see what's okay. Is there anything that we're missing? What are some of the things that people are talking about? There's one like, could Quentin Johnston already be in Jim Harbaugh's doghouse? That's crazy. They haven't put the pads on yet.
Come on.
Like, they haven't even put the pads on yet. So until that happens, yes, he's got a lot to prove. And as Matt Harmon said, since he's been charting these things, it's one of the most disappointing rookie seasons from a player with that many targets that he's ever charted. Doesn't mean it's over. It means there's some work to do, but it doesn't mean it's over.
No, not at all. And man, I just remember, and I'm not comparing Quentin Johnston to Jamar Chase, but do you remember Jamar Chase's preseason in his rookie year?
Yeah, he couldn't catch the ball, and they're blaming it on the bad rotation and all that.
He dropped every ball. He dropped every ball, and everyone's like, "Oh, this guy's going to be a bust. He's going to be a bust." And then all of a sudden, he had an All-Pro year.
Arguably the best receiver in the league.
Yeah. So let's give it some time. But I bring up Quentin because I saw, and you saw what he did at training camp last year. We saw the flashes during preseason and even during the regular season at times. And like some of the big mistakes were mistakes that can easily, in my opinion, be corrected. Like, that Green Bay game, man, like that's something that he would normally catch. He would normally catch that ball. So I have a lot of confidence that Quentin isn't there yet. Like, I think that there's an extra gear for him to go this year, and I hope it works out with the Chargers. Speaking of,
I'll put a button on it here.
Yeah, go ahead.
With I mentioned Sanjay. I got his last name wrong. It's Lau, not Bao. Look, he got DK Metcalf, who was in a very similar, who was a similar graded prospect coming in. Like, yeah, dude, the body's beautiful, the speed is there, but he's got a limited route tree. It's hitches, it's goes, and there's some refinement that you'll need to figure out. And he did, and he did. I had a much, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but I had a much more, I'll try to euphemize it, tempered expectation of Quentin. I was very surprised by the pick just because of the way it lined up with how they had spent their money. They had shown us that they were going all in for this season. So it was very odd to me that they would draft the project. I knew it was going to be a project because, number one. Number two, Big 12 receivers are always a red flag. You've just got to be careful with the Big 12 because of the lack of secondary play, how spread out those offenses are. And if you go back and watch Quentin's tape, there's just a ton of wide open, nobody's near him plays, where he doesn't have to fight with a guy. He doesn't have to concentrate as much on catching the ball. So I thought I think we're lying to ourselves and to the people listening to say, that he's not going to drop those balls. No, he drops balls. He does. And he did it from the entire preseason till all the way to that Green Bay game. Like, that's just what he does. He drops passes, but it's not. And I think it's important to acknowledge that because that's what just has to be fixed. Yeah. It's no different than a big guy.
He can limit the drops.
You've got to get rid of them. When the ball comes your way and you're open, you've got to catch that ball in Green Bay and win that game. And the Jordan Love story perhaps is never written because at that point they're 3-6 or whatever they were at the time, at 4-6 and the Chargers get a win. And maybe now we're in it's you know what I mean? Like, you can't drop those passes. And if he does, he's not going to play. It's that simple. If he continues with the drops, he is not going to play. So the thing, and I bring up that sort of negative side of it to point out he knows that. It's why he's been busting his tail in the offseason. It's why he's with Marvin Harrison Jr. It's why he's out there doing, and he's here. This voluntary portion, phase 1, phase 2, he's here and he's working hard because he knows. And that's the most important thing. It's like, hey, man, don't bury your head in the sand and pretend like, oh, yeah, I'll get it next time. And I'm, no, go get it, man. And I think it's encouraging and you support him because he's trying to go get it. He's working. And if you're willing to work, as Jim Harbaugh has said, hey, we want competitors. When you show up, we want you to compete, and people respect people that want to compete. And so he's out there competing, and I respect the hell out of that. And I hope like heck that it works out for him.
Yep. It's a same team. It's a completely new environment for him.
Yeah.
And you can thrive in a new environment. I saw something else. Someone said the DJ Chark thing doesn't move the needle. Okay, so in the offseason, when you move the needle in the offseason, does it translate to wins? Because it rarely does, right? Like the best teams in the NFL, how about Jim Harbaugh? I think Jim Harbaugh moved the needle. Not every single transaction needs to move the needle. Like, let's concentrate on the culture, the coaches, and the players that they want, that they think can help succeed within the culture. So, I get that it's the off season, and if it was Odell Beckham Jr., it would have moved the needle, right? But would Odell have given you similar production to DJ Chark? Probably, right? Probably within this culture. So, I just from the wide receiver talk in the first round and getting a tackle over a wide receiver to, just little things that don't equate to winning. Like, this team is trying to win in a completely different way that's been done before here at the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh's at the helm of it. Like, we don't need to move the needle every single transaction, to be successful in September.
Well, and I think it's important, and I'm looking off camera for those watching on YouTube, not because I'm ignoring you, Chris, but because I want to just kind of refresh my memory for all the stuff that's gone on transaction-wise. So let's put it this way. Okay, there we go. That just reminded me. Would you rather pair DJ Chark with Justin Herbert or Calvin Ridley with Will Levis? You've got to remember who the quarterback is. Yeah. Like, it changes the calculus completely. Do you want like Hollywood Brown? Look, Kyler Murray's. I think Kyler Murray's a great quarterback. I'm not trying to ding him here, but hey, you feel better about Hollywood Brown with Kyler Murray, and I know they were former teammates at Oklahoma and all that, or you feel better about him with Patrick Mahomes? Probably gonna feel better about him with Patrick Mahomes because it's Patrick Mahomes. Like, there's a quarterback involved here. It's Stephon Diggs with CJ Stroud feels a lot better than if they traded him to let's say New Orleans to pair with Derek Carr. I feel better about him with CJ Stroud than Derek Carr. Like, and that's my subtle shot at Derek Carr because, hey, why not? Like, you know what I mean?
We heard his name in a while.
Yeah,
we've heard his
name in a while. Or here, it's better than trading him to Denver to pair him with a rookie in Bonet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have
Yeah.
to remember there's a quarterback involved. So, and there's an offensive scheme involved. Like, you don't, maybe DJ Chark, they just like the big body and the long levers, and they think he's going to be able to block really well when he's out there, as well as just go that way really fast. If something gets in your way, turn, and that may be what's asked of him. Yeah. Like, I can't say this enough. The Chiefs didn't have a number 2 receiver on their roster. Like, their number 1 receiver was a number 3. Like, Rashee Rice should be a number 3 in most offenses. And that's why they drafted Xavier Worthy and traded for Hollywood Brown, because they know Rashee Rice is a 3. Yet, they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because
he may not play this year, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Because their defense was exceptional. They've got a freaking brilliant tight end that may go down as the greatest to have ever played the position. And they had a running game. Defense, running game, tight end, and a quarterback that, when the chips were down, made plays. They had a number 3 receiver as their number 1. So, because of the style of how they were playing last year. So it's does it move the needle? No, but I'm excited they're investing money and they're adding veteran bodies to the room, and I want to see it in training camp when the pads come on and in some joint practices and stuff. I want to see what it looks like, and then it might move the needle. When he does a double move and takes the top off and he's got 2 steps on a defender and Herbert drops it in after 65 air yards for an 80-yard touchdown, then maybe it'll move the needle.
Yeah. And then
and that may never happen, but at least we'll give it an opportunity to.
Well, having a running game with Justin Herbert, something that has not happened since he's been here. Mark Schlereth has a podcast. He's a Bronco guy. He's in Denver. He has been steadfast. Obviously, he's an offensive lineman, but he's been steadfast in saying the Chargers are going to be a big problem this year because of how they're shifting the focus to offensive line. He said tip of the spear. And the guy he was on with, I forget his name, but he was like, well, they got rid of all his weapons. He goes, do you think that matters? Like, Justin is going to be protected. He's going to be protected in a way he's never been protected. He's going to have a running game. He's never had a running game. And to your point, Money, like, you've seen guys like Tyreek Hill and some of these big name receivers like Stephon Diggs in Buffalo. Eventually, you can't pay everybody. So when, and DJ said this too before, like, when you have the guy, the franchise quarterback, like, you have to let the guy be the guy and make others around him better. Like, you can't have Keenan and Mike with $25 million salaries on the same roster. It's time to restructure it. So I think people are still forgetting, like, there's going to be a running game. They're going to protect Justin Herbert, but Justin Herbert is still going to have to be Justin Herbert in games. Like, they're not going to just blow people out in the first half with the running game, for 16, 17 games. He's still going to have to show up in the second half and make the guys around him better.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And I can't believe I'd never thought of it. I've been sitting here doing the whole Andrew Luck, Stanford, and that's the more apt comparison because it's Jim Harbaugh and it's a superstar quarterback. And we saw what it looked like when Harbaugh got that and how he was able to take the reins off and let Andrew throw it all over the yard. But you just brought up the best comparison. And it's not the best because obviously Elway was far more accomplished. He had been to Super Bowls. He was widely acknowledged as the best quarterback in football. It was either him, everybody would say, well, look, Montana's the winner. Marino's got the best arm. But if you want the best all-around physical specimen with the biggest arm at whatever at quarterback, it's Elway. So I just pulled it up. Schlereth won two Super Bowls with him, right? 97, 98. Here's your first year that Shanahan commits to that run, that wide zone, and Terrell Davis gets 369 carries for 1,750 yards and 15 touchdowns. You know what John Elway did that year? He threw for 3,650 yards and 27 touchdowns. He was not neutralized by a running back that has 306. And remember, this is before the era of 5,000-yard passes.
Exactly.
He's probably still one of the leading.
Lot.
Yeah, he's still probably one of the leading passers in the league. The very next year they win the Super Bowl again. Terrell Davis, 392 carries for 2,008 yards and 21 touchdowns. Elway only played in 12 games. threw for 22 touchdowns, 2,800 yards. It's like it's still there. Like it's still, Bubby Brister had to play in 7 games that year because Elway was at the end. He was, rode off into the sunset that year. But the two can coexist. You can have a dominant running game and a superstar quarterback that's going to throw it all over the yard and win Super Bowls. I'm looking at let's see what his, where is Rod Smith? Was Rod Smith his lead? Yeah. So Rod Smith that year, 1,180 yards, 12 touchdowns. The year that TD went for 17, 50, and 15 touchdowns. Rod Smith, nearly 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like, you can still balance it because it helps. Because now you're freaking out over Terrell Davis running the ball, and Elway is going to throw for 36, 35, and 27 touchdowns with see, it's different back then. QB rating of 87.5.
Yeah.
And completing 56% of his passes. The guy attempted 500 passes. Like, you can make it work. You can make it work. You can make it balance out.
Buddy, the football I grew up on was the then Washington Redskins in the 80s and 90s. Joe Gibbs started with the offensive line, started with the Hogs, right? And you could point to the 80s with John Riggins, with Terry Allen in the 90s, with Ernest Biner, with Timmy Smith, who had over 200 yards in the Super Bowl, 35-point second quarter. He did it with 3 different quarterbacks, but the system was, we're going to run the ball down your throats. We're going to have a massive offensive line, and we're going to set everything up with play action, and you're done. And we're going to run the ball. Yeah. And it's coming too, by the way. Like, right. This play is coming and you can't stop it. And from Hayden Hurst to all these other players who have talked about how this is going to be a physical football team where you're not going to want to play us, and you're going to have to play 60 minutes, all 60 minutes in order to win. Like, I remember my childhood growing up, and I know that it was a different era and free agency, and there's so many things different about the game today. But the physicality element, there's few teams in the NFL. Like, who would you consider like the 2 or 3 most like violent physical football teams in the NFL? The Ravens,
Baltimore, San Francisco,
right?
Yeah, Baltimore, San Francisco are it. Philadelphia's up there. Certainly, with how much they run, then they got to get back to that this year. They got away from it last year of Jalen Hurts running and just a downhill attack over and over and over again. But yeah, San Francisco, especially with the way they use their wide receivers and how their passing game is very physical. You think about George Kittle, how physical of a tight end he is, and obviously Baltimore's the no-brainer. There's Pittsburgh, but they're just not as good at it. Like, their O-line, that's why they drafted, their top 2 picks were both O-linemen. Like, they need to fix that O-line. They want to be that physical team. But yeah, it's those two. And I think that's important, right? Because they're both very successful. And Baltimore, between a complete brain lapse from Zay Flowers and an absolutely brutal interception that it's hard to imagine him deciding to throw that ball by Lamar Jackson, they lost that game to the Chiefs, but they were in it. The defense was in it. The running game kept them in it. And you have, just 2 horrible moments and decisions by 2 players that likely led to the end. I think the thing to point out, instead of us just talking about the days when we were younger and what football looked like and how physical it was, it's, hey, remember, that's not what everybody did. We're talking about the Chargers here. We're talking about Air Coryell. Like, there were teams that spread it out and threw it all over the place as well. Mm-hmm. So that was still part of football back then, where you had the Dolphins and Dan Marino and throwing it to Clayton and Duper. And you had these teams that were airing it out. The Warren Moon Houston Oilers, there were plenty of the K-gun, with Jim Kelly, that was a nice balanced offense where he had Andre Reed, but he also had Thurman Thomas. Like, you had all of these. Football is different. Like, it's just, you're never going to deviate too far from the core philosophies, because ultimately, and we've said it before on this podcast, it comes down to 2 things: forward progress and preventing forward progress. That's what this game is all about. However it is that you need to gain or prevent is what will determine whether or not you win or lose games, whether or not you succeed or fail on an individual play or in a quarter or in a game or in a season. And however you determine the best approach to that, whether it's with a 4-3 front, a 3-4 front, with a shell on top to make you have to dink and dunk your ways down, with the Brian Flores, Bill Belichick, amoeba defense, blitz heavy, in the case of Flores, 0 blitzes relentlessly. It's whatever you choose, however you choose to approach it. There's a few different variations in it, but ultimately you're all trying to get to the same conclusion. And that is, you want to go this way and I'm not going to let you, or I'm going that way. Good luck stopping me. And, you can choose to do that however you see fit, whatever you think is the wisest approach for what the current rules and makeup of the league offer. And I firmly believe, and we said it before, that Jim Harbaugh looks at the league as soft. He looks at small linebackers and shells and these Vic Fangio defenses with too high and just keeping everything in front of him. He's like, I'm gonna ram it down their throats because they're just not built to stop it. There's the way the game has moved, there's not enough sand in the ass of these players to slow down a physical, right at you, tip of the spear, we're coming, and there's nothing you can do about it attack.
Do you remember week 1? I mean, the Chargers weren't even trying to, they were running the football week 1 with Austin Eckler. They were getting like huge chunks of yardage on Vic Fangio's defense. And then after that, they kind of went away from it for the rest of the year. But like, it was that Vic Fangio defense where they were giving them the run and the Chargers were taking it. And they, but imagine a Jim Harbaugh led offense and you're going to give them that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so exciting about this offense with Justin Herbert as your quarterback is it's one thing to do it to Lamar Jackson and commit all those resources to shutting down the run because you're not necessarily as afraid of his arm pushing it downfield. Now you're afraid of his legs for sure, and that's how you end up getting the defenses on their heels. But if you're able to mix in, a dominant rush attack that's getting you 4.5 to 5 yards per clip with a legitimate MVP candidate worthy MVP level quarterback, it is a terrifying task to take on for defensive coordinators. And that's ultimately what you want to do, right? Is put them in conflict, put their decision-making process in conflict. So they're overthinking everything and they, in turn can't figure out an answer to the test.
Because this week has been a little slower, I was looking at some other podcasts. Joe Ortiz was on Chris Long's Greenlight podcast, and Chris Long asked for a comp to Ladd McConkey, and Joe's like, you know what, I don't like to give comps, but he does remind me a little bit of a guy that we drafted in Baltimore early in his tenure, Brandon Stokely. But he just said much more explosive than Stokely, and I thought that was a cool comparison, and a lot of love for Ladd here these last couple of weeks from all corners of the media world. Yeah.
When you go look at the film, that's why you see it. And that's something that we've talked about it. It's route running. Give me the route runner. Give me the guy that's leaving dudes in the dust, that's breaking ankles out there, that is available for his quarterback. And when you look around, there's nobody near him because his separation numbers are off the charts. Like that's what I want to see. That to me is so much more translatable to the NFL than anything else, just because of the jump and play. So that's why I think more and more people. And again, who's throwing him the ball? You think about the Herbert-Keenan Allen connection, and look, Keenan is he's the best route runner in the game. He's a master. His number's going to be retired by the Chargers. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but at his current age and mileage, he's not the explosive player that he once was. So while Ladd's got a long way to go to catch up with that level of route running, he's got the foundation and he's got 300% more explosiveness to his game. That when that ball's in his hands, he's gone. When Keenan caught the ball, he's going down just because, that particular physical attribute is left. It's changed dramatically. Of course, you take the amount of hits and you play the amount of games that he's played and you get to that age, then some stuff's going to go away. Ladd still got that. Like now I've created the separation. I've caught the ball, and I've got 4.3 speed. And now I've taken a quick, hitch or a quick out that was going to go for 8 yards, 18 yards, because I've got that gear and that ability to turn upfield immediately. So that's why I think there's so much excitement surrounding it, because you can really let your mind wander with what Herbert and he are going to be able to accomplish based on what Herbert's been able to do in his past with a player like Keenan Allen.
Next week, we're going to have a lot to talk about with rookie minicamp coming to a close. We'll recap that. But the big main event is the schedule release money. And I don't know how many games the Chargers are going to have on primetime to start. Would you want to guess? And how about we do this? How about we guess how many and which ones, and we'll see how close we are next Wednesday night.
Well, I know people are going to say I'm crazy, but I feel like the kickoff to the season, I think about those interviews, how it's this massive 2-hour presentation. And obviously you're going to have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid. So you have stars, but I think about the potential matchups, right? So the ones that are mentioned the most are Baltimore, Cincinnati, Houston. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But we've kind of seen this Baltimore, Kansas City movie before. And I think that's better for down the line. Are these two teams jockeying for the number one seed? You want that in week 10, 12, Cincinnati's interesting because Burrow's coming back. What was that return? So that leads to, but then I think about Zach Taylor, who's not a very dynamic personality. So Houston, they just did that as the opener 2-3 years ago. That was the opener, was a Houston, Kansas City game. And I know Stroud's exciting and D'Amico's very dynamic personality. So that works. But then I just think about, you got Jim Harbaugh sitting in front of you for, you know what I mean? It's NBC and it's Jim Harbaugh sitting with Tony Dungy talking ball or whoever he's going to sit with. Is Tony Dungy still on that broadcast? I think he is, right?
He's football. He's on. I think he's on I think he's in the studio. He'll probably be there Thursday.
But you know what I mean? You've got him sitting with the coach and they're talking ball and you got Justin Herbert. To me, it just you don't necessarily want that, prospective vying for the number one seed in the AFC matchup in week 1. That's not what you're looking for. Those are the Cincinnati's. If that, the way the Chargers are projected, what their over under is, they're not projected to be in that conversation this year. So I just think that lines up. I think the kickoff lines up for the Chargers to play the Chiefs in Kansas City. I really do. That's the one thing I'm going to stick my neck out on. In terms of how many, I don't know. 4 would be my guess. You're guaranteed a Thursday night. You're guaranteed a Monday night. Can they get one more Monday and Sunday? I think so. I think Harbaugh and Herbert, to me, 4 makes probably the most sense. And I don't know about holidays. I don't know if they're a holiday team this year.
I could see the Thanksgiving Harbaugh brothers being a potential holiday that. Yeah,
that's
Thursday
a good one.
Night. I think.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
That's the only holiday that I could see being.
That's a great call.
Family, football.
Call.
Who's
you got Jack and
us?
Jackie out.
Yeah.
And you can have that sit down with dad and the 2 sons. Brothers. You get to spend the day before Thanksgiving. Did you guys hang out together? What are you doing after the game? Are you getting to that kind of thing? That's a great call. That's a really good call.
The Chiefs, man, I would love for the NFL season to start with Chargers Chiefs.
Yeah.
Just a new chapter of Chargers Chiefs.
Yeah.
And who did they play last? They played the Lions last year. That was a weird game because Chris Jones was not playing. He was in
holding
a
out.
suite. The Lions won.
Yeah, it was but and that's, I think that speaks to kind of what I'm getting to, right? Where the Lions were kind of that up and coming team, super interesting head coach. It's that's the sort of team that kicks off the season. It's not these are the 2 teams that are going to be duking it out in the AFC Championship game. That's just not what you typically see in week 1. That's why I think there's a real good shot that we get that. I had a gut feeling we were going to get Germany with the Panthers, but now the more I think about it, I I don't know if that's in the cards. I thought maybe it was.
That would be the only potential international, right?
It's the only one they could
It's the
play,
only one.
Yeah, that's the only one that's available because it's a Panthers home game. We're going to Carolina. You could do the whole back-to-back because we do have a lot of games on the East Coast. You know, the flight to Munich from, like, if the Chargers played the Patriots the week before, the flight to Munich from Boston is like 7.5 hours. You know, you fly from here, it's 11.5. So you could do that. You could play the Patriots, hop the pond, you know, do the tour of Germany with Herbert and Harbaugh, these two huge stars to spread the game internationally. You know, that's where that sort of kind of came into mind for me. Is like, yeah, you got two bona fide superstars that are walking around out here that are, you know, and with Derwin, like, you've got great star power to walk around the city and really move that needle. So that I think it's in play. I don't know. For some reason, I don't feel as good about it now as I did before. So let me look at their. Let's just pull up their opponents real quick.
I'm going to go easy. I'm going to say 5. Okay, and I'm going to say
that's big, man.
I know, but I
5
feel like
is big for a 5-win team.
I know, but I don't think that they think that of the Chargers as a 5-win team. I think the Jim Harbaugh thing is going to move the needle because of the person. Like, okay, Chiefs for sure, Ravens for sure. I'm going out on a limb and saying Burrow, Herbert, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. I think that
those are fun. All. Yeah, those are 2 home games, Ravens, Bengals.
Okay, and then let's go to Vegas. Let's go to Vegas for the rematch for the revenge game against Tom Telesco, Antonio Pearson, the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah,
and then so the fifth one's an asterisk. I want to see Peyton and Harbaugh on primetime.
Right.
I want to see those two coaches.
I just think they're too far away in terms of, like, I don't know.
I'm
that could be a Monday nighter.
I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, Denver, LA could be a Monday nighter. You know, that could be like the doubleheader kickoff. Although, I don't know. I just feel like those teams they would look at it as these two teams are too far away. Steelers, Chargers at Pittsburgh could be interesting. You know, you've got star power there with Tomlin and Harbaugh, two, you know, rough and tumble physical coaches.
Yeah, Russ.
You know, you could get Russell Wilson or Justin Fields versus Herbert. Like, there's something there. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with 4. I'm gonna stick 4 primetime, and maybe that's just wishful thinking. 4 primetime, and the opener, and I think Germany's still in play. I think we're probably second, or see what the Panthers' possibilities are.
The reason I say 5 is because if it doesn't work out at the end of the year, they can flex you out. But getting Harbaugh on the books, let's get Jim on the books,
right?
And
they can also flex you in. So.
They can also flex you in too. Exactly. Denver Chargers early in the year, I think, would make sense on primetime because, you know, it's not. You're not. I don't think Denver's gonna win more than 9 games this year.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out who the Panthers could take because, I mean, that's why I'm saying it could line up. I don't think they won't make it a division game. So then you've got Giants, Cowboys. They're not going to make the Cowboys go to Germany. The Panthers want that home game. They want all that money.
Yep.
So same with the Giants. You're going to want all that home money, you know, I think. So then you've got the Cardinals, Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. They were just there last year. That's out.
Cardinals.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
So it's Bengals. They play the Bengals, the Chargers, the Chiefs, AFC, out of division. They play the Cardinals, Cowboys, Giants, out of division. Like, to me, again, Chargers are right up there for Germany.
It's probably Chargers, Cardinals, Bengals, or the top 3.
That'd be my guess, yeah. And didn't the Cardinals just go international? Or maybe not. I thought they did, I don't
know if they did. We know the Chiefs did.
You know, I think you look at Burrow, Herbert, those are your stars walking around Germany, taking your photos, moving the needle, because the Panthers got nothing to move the needle. So you need that opponent to be the team that really gets that thing moving over there in Germany. You know, it's not like London where we know there's a built-in fan base. People are ready. They love it. They come no matter what. But like, you're trying to get this Germany thing going. And you gave them the Chiefs last year. I think it's Chiefs-Dolphins last year, right? In Germany is what it was.
Oh, yeah. That was a treat. That was a big treat.
Yeah. So
it's it would be a Bradley Bozeman, Hayden Hurst, DJ Chark revenge game.
Boy, oh boy, look out. Talk about motivation.
You know, it's funny. Hayden has played for the Bengals, the Ravens, the Falcons, and the Panthers. They're all on the schedule this year. He's going to play all his former teams.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a great call. It's a great call. All right.
All right. We're done.
Yep.
You know what? We went 45 minutes on this, and not a ton going on. But I'm excited about next week. We'll see if Money's right with his 4. I think 4 is probably the magic number. I said 5 just because I wanted the Peyton Harbaugh. I'm getting a little too much there, I think.
And hey, if it's 3 and you got to earn it on a flex, got no problem with that either. They'll earn it.
Yep, they'll earn it. All right, for Money, I'm Chris. This has been Chargers Weekly. We'll see you next week.